One summer day in 1922, two attorneys from Lorain, Ohio were fishing on the Boardman River in northern Michigan. And there was a mayfly hatch going on that morning, but they weren't having any luck matching it. So they go see their friend Len Halladay, who lived in nearby Mayfield, Ohio. Len Halladay ran a hotel there, and he had been a well-respected fisherman and guide for the last 30 years or so. And the two attorneys were happy to take advice from this veteran, who gave the elder gentleman a sample of a pattern he'd just come up with. The fly he gave him was a fairly bushy dry fly with golden pheasant tippets for the tail, a gray wool yarn body, grizzly hackle tips for wings, and then grizzly and brown hackle wrapped up front. The next morning, the guy takes it out on the Boardman and has a great day with it. And later that day, he tells Halladay how successful it was for him and asked him what the fly was called. And Halladay said, "Well, it doesn't have a name yet, but since you're the first one who's had a good catch with it, I'll name it after you." The fisherman he gave that fly to was Charles Adams, and that is how arguably the greatest dry fly ever created was born. Now, despite the success of this original version and its growing reputation over the next few years, it did evolve a bit. First, the body was changed to a muskrat dubbing, which sheds water a little bit better than wool does and made the fly a little more buoyant. Then by the 1930s, the fly had made its way east toward the Catskills, and you know Catskill fly tyers. They changed it up a bit, they made the body a little bit thinner, and changed the tail to grizzly and brown hackle fibers. And that is the version that caught fire. One of the premier outdoor writers at the time, Ray Bergman, wrote an article in the May 1937 issue of Outdoor Life called Flies for Odd Situations, where he talked about the Adams. Then in April of 1938, Pennsylvania Angler magazine had an article by R.W. McCafferty called Trout Tackle Suggestions, where he talked about it, and he may have been the first one to show it tied as a spent wing. Bergman wrote about it again in June 1940, then Harold Smedley had it in his 1944 book, Fly Patterns and Their Origins. And the pattern has been written about probably hundreds of times in the last 80 years. So why does this pattern work, and what exactly does it imitate? Well, most think it is a mayfly imitation, and I fall into that camp too. But there are folks who think it was created as a caddis or even a stonefly. But Tom DeShane, the guru of Michigan dry flies, has a different take. He thinks Halladay may have created this as an alder fly. All these are reasonable theories, but we may never know what Halladay was actually thinking. But notable Catskill fisherman and historian Ed Van Putt probably had it right when he said, "The Adams doesn't look exactly like anything, but it looks enough like a lot of things that it just catches fish." The version I'm about to tie for you, it's the modern version, or maybe I should put modern in air quotes because it's still 80 years old. But if you haven't tied or fished this thing in a while, give it another shot. It is still a great fly, and one a lot of people think is the greatest dry fly of all time. So there it is in the vise, good old Adams. Now this one, those wings are a little bit farther forward than I'd like, caused me to crowd that eye a little bit. Let's see if we can't do this one just a little bit better. This is a size 12 standard length barbless dry fly hook. Let's get that caught in. And I'm gonna go with the black 52 denier thread. Just gonna catch it in somewhere up here in the first third. The first thing I'm gonna catch in are the wings, just grizzly hackle tips. Now you can spend some time trying to get the dark sides together or out or whatever you want. I don't really worry about that. I do try to get the tips aligned though, so that they're about the same length. Let's go with that one right there. And then body length. So my goal is about right there. Let's try to catch that in. And remember that last fly in the vise at the beginning, I think these wings were a little too far forward. So let's start this one a little bit farther back. Fold it up and take a look. Okay, that's gonna be high, but it shouldn't be too high. I want it to be just a little bit higher than the hackle I'm gonna be putting down. And for the hackle, I'm gonna go with maybe 1.5 times the hook gap. So I think we should be okay right there. All right, now before I post those wings up, I will take my thread back here to where it's on the bare hook, and now I'm gonna catch in my tail. And since we're doing the modern version, the tail is gonna be grizzly and brown hackle barbs. So this is a dozen or so of the grizzly. And I do like my mayflies with kind of long tails, so let's put 2 wraps down there and take a look at that. Okay, I could even go longer, but I think we're gonna be fine right there. And I'm gonna have some curlies to snip off, but we'll do that after we've caught in the brown. So here's my brown, another bunch about the same number of barbs here. So let's lay that right on top, and then we'll do a pinch wrap right here and see what that's gonna give us. Okay, I think that's gonna be fine right there. Now what you can do, and a lot of folks will do this, they'll put a wrap right up under them to keep them from spinning around the hook. So we'll go ahead and do that. I don't think it really, costs you too much time right here. So we'll put one wrap under there. Now that should keep them from spinning around the hook, but what that will also do is prop them up a little bit, which if you don't want them propped up, just pull your thread out, let it spin counterclockwise a little bit, and maybe it'll flatten out. And now we can go back with a wider thread, hopefully, and some not real tight wraps just to kind of lay that tail down. And now we can go back up here with some tighter wraps. So I think that tail is going to be fine right there, but I do have these little curlies up here I need to snip off. Okay, I think that's going to be good enough. Let's take our thread back up here, and I'm trying not to go too far forward because I don't want these wings causing me to crowd my eye. So just lift these all up and then put a thread down right underneath it. And there's going to be some fibers that don't pull up. And the moment of truth, when I let go of these with my material hand, are they going to be posted perpendicular? Well, they will be. They should be. Well, nope, they weren't. They're kind of back, so we can fix that. But you also want to be careful if you've got, or just be mindful, do you have any other fibers going all over the place that you might want to trim? So now would be a good time to do that. So I've got some here going forward and then a couple in the middle that I probably need to trim. Okay, I've got a few wayward barbs there, but I think the wings are in a decent enough position. Now you might think, okay, those are splayed out well enough. Let's go ahead and do our body and the hackle. But what I'd like to do, I'm going to put 2 X-wraps in between them. Because even though they might be splayed out how you want right now, after we catch in the hackle and start wrapping it, you might end up pushing them back together. And we don't really want that. We want them to keep that little bit of separation right there. Okay, I think we got it right there. That's going to be just fine. Couple wraps right there. But now I need to take my thread back here to the tail so we can catch in some the hackle for the body, or not the hackle, the dubbing for the body. So let's get our thread right back here and pull a few inches out, put a little wax on it. Now the very original had gray wool here, but I don't like wool for dry flies, and that's probably why they eventually changed it to a muskrat. But a lot of tires nowadays will use something synthetic. So I'm going with the synthetic here. This is a superfine, and it's actually called an Adams Gray. So I'm going to try to get maybe a 3-inch noodle here. 3-inch might be a little bit more than I need. I'm trying to keep it thin, even though it's getting a little bit thicker on me there than I want. But let's see. Let's take a couple of wraps until we're laying some dubbing. Okay, and now we can spin this just a little bit tighter. And I've still got a little bit too much. I'm gonna have to just pull off the bottom of my noodle here. Now let's wrap this up. We're gonna take it right up here to behind the wings. And if you want it more Catskill style, keep it pretty thin. If you want it a little bit older school style, now you can make it a little bit thicker if you want. Now that is pretty much what I want, but I still got about 1 inch of dubbing right here, so I'm gonna have to just pull this off and then maybe snip that with my scissors. Okay, I think that's gonna work. I got a little bit of dubbing hanging off right there that's not bound too tight, but we'll be able to secure that. So let's catch in our dry fly hackle right now. First one, it's gonna be a Grizzly. So what I like to do, just hold it right there to it and say, okay, pull it around till I'm about 1.5 times the hook gap. I think that's gonna be about right there. And let's catch this one in with a couple wraps back here behind the wings. Okay, and now we can leave that stem along the hook and wrap it going forward. And we can go ahead and snip this little stub right here. We'll keep it out of the way when we tie in our next feather here. But before we do that, we do need to get our thread back here to where we're going to catch this brown one in. And I'll do the same thing with the brown, try to measure that. Okay, that one's about right there. So we'll catch this brown one in with a couple of thread wraps and do the same thing we did with the Grizzly. Just leave that stem alongside the hook as we wrap it forward. And now we'll wrap these. I don't think it really matters which one you wrap first. I'm going to wrap the brown first. And I'm going to try and get 2 wraps behind the wings and then 2 or 3 in front. Okay, that is 3 in front. Let's secure this feather and snip it. And now we'll do the same thing with this Grizzly. You might need to zigzag it a little bit to not mat down that brown hackle you got put down. Okay, we got 2 wraps securing that one. And that is a big bushy hackle. It's kind of what I like. But before I snip off this excess, I'm gonna lick my fingers, pull everything back, and just make some room for my whip finish. And this fly is going to be much easier to get a tippet through. I'm not crowding the eye on this one. In fact, I probably could have gone a little bit farther forward, but I like this and I'm going to go with this one right here. So after a 3 or 4 turn whip finish, we'll snip this excess feather right here and then take care of the cleanup. We have any barbs going forward? Yep, I've got a few here. So I should be able to get in here and snip these pretty short. And then afterwards I can take my singeing tool if I really want to clean this up. But I don't spend that much time on it, on the cleanup, if I determine I can still get my tippet up through there. And in this case I can. So let's critique this one real quick. That first one, the wings are too far forward. And this one, are they too far back? Not really, but it is a bit bushier of a fly, but I kind of like that, and I'm putting this in my box just like this. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.